Thank you, Sister Kachida. And welcome, brethren, to our Sabbath afternoon study. We're starting late, and I'm sorry about that. And this is actually a longer study on top of that. So we are going straight into our study, and we're going to move as quickly as possible. And I want to say before we start that the message teaches that every generation must have present truth suitable for their time. And this did not end at the tomb of the dead prophet. This is the principle that has always existed, and it still exists, brethren. And God's people walk in present truth, and they are likened to sheep because they move ahead even when they're not sure about what is going on. They move by faith, not by instinct, not by thinking things through, but they move by faith. So, without further ado, let us begin. What it means to be a Davidian is changing, brethren. Many have, as had Moses, very much to unlearn in order to learn the very lessons they need to learn. There's much for each to unlearn with respect to himself, as well as much to learn. Old habits and customs must be shaken off, and it is only by earnest struggles to correct these errors and a full reception of the truth and carrying out its principles by the grace of God that victory can be gained. And if we think we have all the truth that we need, that nothing is ever going to change, that we have a perfect understanding of things, and if we want to set our stakes where we are, we will be left behind, brethren. And we don't want that to happen, but it's going to happen to some. Now, what do we mean by that the standards of being a Davidian is changing? What we mean by that is that to be a Davidian is more than meat and drink. The kingdom of heaven is not meat and drink, and we are not polluted by what goes into our mouth, but what comes out of our mouth. But we get it backward, and we put too much emphasis on the things that go in and very little emphasis or not enough emphasis of what comes out. And what comes out is only what's in our heart. And what is in our heart is what is polluting. And what comes out pollutes others. If you think that it is wrong and sinful to put something unclean or forbidden into your mouth, if you think it's wrong, I want you to realize that it's many times more wrong to speak with anger, to speak unkind word, hurtful words, jealous words, envious words, many more times. But most people, in fact, all of us, do not see this. We don't see this. Now, am I saying it's okay to go and eat whatever you want, drink whatever you want, smoke whatever you want, and so on? I'm not saying that, brethren. What I'm saying is those things are wrong, those things, those principles that we have, and they are wrong. But the things that we routinely do are far more wrong, and it's time that we change our way of thinking on this. We have things to unlearn, a lot of things to unlearn, brethren. Old habits and customs must be shaken off. Old habits of speech, old customs that we think are part of eternal truth. Well, there are customs, you know. We have attached ourselves to it. This is how we've always done. And we become very much wrapped up in these things. But this is not what the kingdom of heaven is all about. It is not meat or drink or dress. And that's what our subject is going to be on. And I do want to talk about how our standards are changing, and it's going to be, we're going to go a little longer. I hope that we will, that the material will be interesting, and you will be able to stay with us in this little bit longer time that we're going to have. As a follower of Christ and a Davidian, and these are the things, this is what it means to be a Davidian today. This is what it's really about. Not meat or drink, brethren. If you, example that I use many times is, those things are the things you learn in kindergarten. You learn your ABCs in kindergarten, but if you're going to be at the college level Davidian, there is much, much more important things for us to master. And yes, you can't be in college successfully if you don't know your ABCs. But don't feel, no person in college feels good every day that they know their ABCs. They have moved beyond that. Do not think highly of yourself that you know your ABCs, brethren. You need to be thinking about the advanced things, and we're going to talk about that first. As a follower of Christ and a Davidian, I understand that I am called in a personal and direct way to live a God-centered life, refraining from the unrighteous ways of the world. Accordingly, I am committed to serving God and daily doing good to my fellow men. Insofar as it is up to me, I live peaceably with all men. I willingly bear the cross of Christ, daily crucifying self and calmly controlling any sinful desires or emotions. Now, brethren, this is what being a Davidian is about now. And if you do all the lesser things, and you cannot do these things, you cannot truly be a Davidian. The Lord does not accept less, and neither can Bashan. And people who think they've been a Davidian for 20 or 30 years, you need to judge yourself, and if you do not come up to the standards, we want you to come up to the standards, but we're not going to lower the standards for you. I have let go of the ideas and dreams of the world and replaced them with the Lord's plans for me. I have taken up the Davidian mindset and made it my own. With God's help, I am learning great self-control. I daily cultivate a calm, peaceful, harmonious and happy state of mind. And this is what our religion is all about. I never knowingly give offense to anyone, nor do I take offense from anyone. I understand that I am judged as I judge others, and so I do not judge or condemn anyone. I do not cherish any grievances, ill will, or bitterness towards anyone. I quickly forgive others of all their trespasses against me, even before they apologize, since I understand that I am only forgiven myself by the Lord as I forgive my fellow men. With God's help, I am learning to love my brethren, my fellow man, it should be. I have chosen to be, and with God's assistance am daily becoming, a strong, resilient, and stoical Davidian, able to calmly face and overcome adversity and difficulties. Now, brethren, again, all these things is what it means to be a Davidian. It's what it means to be a Christian, too. But we, as Davidians, apply this specifically to ourselves. I adhere to the golden rule and consistently practice Christian courtesy, consideration, and kindness toward everyone, treating all fairly and justly without partiality or prejudice. I further understand that true Davidian living requires me to practice Davidian system and order in all aspects of my life. This involves simplifying and organizing my life, adhering to a regular schedule, and being careful, neat, and orderly in all things. It also requires us to be competent in everything. We have to be careful and skillful in all our duties, all our work. And brethren, these are the things that identify a Davidian. These are the things that identified Jacob and Joseph and David and Daniel. These are the things that are required for us today. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the ABCs. And we're going to be talking about dress. And this is going to be some new things, brethren, for you. And in a deeper sense, I hope you will see that there is nothing new here. The principles of our dress remain the same. The principles of not calling special attention to ourselves, dressing simply without a lot of adornment, dressing tastefully and attractively, and dressing, and all these things are wrapped up in the word modestly, not calling special attention to ourselves in one way or another. This is from Ellen G. White. There is no need to make the dress question the main point of your religion. There is something richer to talk of Christ, and when the heart is converted, everything that is out of harmony with the Word of God will drop off. It is not your dress that makes you of value in the Lord's sight. It is the inward adorning, the graces of the Spirit, the kind word, the thoughtful consideration of others that God values. Brethren, this is the truth that we will follow as Davidians, and I hope you will follow it with me. This is the principle that that guides us in where we are going with dress standards. No one precise style has been given me as the exact rule to guide all in their dress. Why? Why? But I know you think that there is a precise rule to guide everyone, and you are deeply. Many people have a deep connection and conviction about that. It is good to do the things that we should do, but it is good to do it from the right reason, not because you are compelled through habit and custom, but because you are doing it in faith and understanding. But many people do things, and as they do things, it becomes a very deep part of who they are. This is who I am. And to change these things feels like almost changing who they are. That's not true, brethren. We're not changing what it means to be a Davidian on this level, but on the other level, yes, we are. And many people who are mistakenly putting too much emphasis on how they dress come very much short of being a Davidian. And we're very serious that that's going to be turned around. And we're going to be Davidians, and we're going to adapt ourselves to the dress standards that we have to put forward to you. Now, we want everyone to move in this direction, and we hope you will be able to unlearn. But sometimes unlearning is more painful than learning. It's more difficult. And for some people, it is impossible. Okay, now the reason that there was not one principle given is because the rules of earthly dress are not permanent. They are temporary, suited for the occasions, the circumstance, the climate. In the antediluvian days, the climate was uniformly mild, and what was suitable then was different from now, just as the dress in the Garden of Eden was different from the dress now. And I'm making this point to show you that these things are contingent on the circumstances, the time and place, and so on. The order given by God to the children of Israel to place a blue ribbon in their garments was to have no direct influence on their health, only as God would bless them by obedience, and the ribbon would keep in their memory the high claims of Jehovah and prevent them from mingling with other nations, uniting in their drunken feasts and eating swine's flesh and luxurious food detrimental to health. Now, we are not observing the blue ribbon in our dress. We don't even know about it, most people. But that's all right, it's not permanent. There's nothing to worry about. The dress standard for us today is not the same as the dress standard then. And that's the point for this here. And this is from Brother Houdeff. Is it all right for a woman to wear slacks while engaged in defense work? Are they not men's garment? Answer, if the wearing of slacks should be restricted to men, because men today universally wear trousers, then anciently skirts would have been denied women because that garment was then the common garb of men. Now, I've said this before with my own words, but I'm saying it one more time and one last time with the words of the message. They dressed in tunics. This is an ancient Israelite dress. And this is a tunic without a belt, and they usually wore a belt or a girdle, they called it, in King James Version. And the dress was different. The men's dress was different from the women's dress, but they all had what we would consider a dress. Okay, different. The different style, what pertained to the woman was not the same style and as the man, but they were wearing dresses or skirts, as Brother Houdeff says. This is the ancient Roman tunic and toga, and if someone were to dress like that now, if a man was to dress like that now, it would be unsuitable. Okay, we would say no, do not do that unless you are in ancient Rome. And when you are in ancient Rome, dress as the Romans, yes. Okay, that is actually a requirement. We are not in ancient Rome. Now I'm going to read a little background on this. It's okay in one sense that you may not know about the cultural history of pants and dresses. It's not really okay. Davidians need to know things. You do need to know things, brethren. And I notice that most Davidians do not specially know more things than the world does. And you do need to know. And if you're not in the habit of knowing, you need to start knowing. and you have to learn, of course. But we're going to talk a little bit about the cultural history of pants and dress, and then you can do some more research yourself, and you need to end up knowing these things yourself. This is taken from an article from Big Think on the internet. In 9 AD, Ovid was exiled by Emperor Augustus. In what is now Tomis, Romania, the poet first encountered barbarians. The people, even when they were not dangerous, were odious, clothed in skins and trousers, with only their faces visible. There were no particular hygienic reasons for the Roman distaste for pants, says Professor Kelly Olson, author of Masculinity and Dress in Ancient Roman Antiquity. They did not like them, it appears, because of their association with non-Romans. It was not their culture. And as they ran into it, there was a distaste and a prejudice. There was contempt, in fact. We do not do those kind of emotions ourselves, by the way. People do have a natural distaste for what they don't have, what is not their way, and people do look at other people and like, how they dress, and they look at that, how funny it is, how strange it is. And it's normal if you're a Roman. It's not normal, by the way, for a real Davidian to have that kind of prejudice and be locked into the customs and traditions and the thinking that they have. It is, for us, we are called to a higher standard. Okay. But opinions change with time, and not long after, the historian and Senator Publius Cornelius Tacitus listed pants among a range of exotic behaviors of the Germanic tribes, whom he praised for having morals unweakened by civilization. River bathing, ponytails, twisted tufts resembling horns or plumes, and pants. It is not as though every person walking around ancient Rome was wearing a toga. They were more like formal wear. Tunics were the most common garment, sleeveless or short sleeve for men, and long sleeved and ankle length for women. Squeezing one's legs into stitch fabric was simply not tradition and not generally demanded by the Mediterranean climate. Okay, so this is a little background on the history of pants in Rome. And we directly come down from Rome. Many of our very large chunks of our civilization today, our culture and so on, are based on Roman ideas and traditions and so on. Okay, so what is a tunic? A tunic is a skirt or dress, okay? And but I would have called it a skirt, but it's a dress is the way we would say it now. However, as the empire expanded, this began to change. Romans and tribes from newly annexed northern lands fought side by side to protect their borders from still other barbarians, such as the Visigoth. So military trousers used by Germans or Gauls became the outfit of choice for Roman troops, presumably because they're more practical on the northern battlefield than floppy tunics. Evidence of this early trouserization of Roman troops can be seen in the spiral bas-relief of Trajan's column, the 98-foot tall marble monument erected in AD 113 to honor the emperor's triumph over the Dacians, pants wearers from what is now Romania and the region around it. In that depiction, generals and other high-rank figures wear tunics or togas, while the common soldiers wear legions. The high officials were still holding out to the ancient customs and traditions, the more formal wear. like with GPS and internet, innovations from the military sector slowly spread to civil society. By 397, trousers in all their odiousness were becoming so common that brother emperors Honorius and Arcadius of the Western and Eastern empires, respectively, issued an official trouser ban. Okay? The ban is cited in a code named for their father, Theodosius. It would just be a random chance if any of these Latin words are being pronounced correctly by Brother Trevor. Which read, "Within the venerable city, no person should be allowed to appropriate to himself the use of boots or trousers. But if any man should attempt to contravene this sanction, we command that in accordance with the sentence of the illustrious Perfect, the offender shall be stripped of all his resources and delivered into perpetual exile." It was a stiff penalty for wearing pants in Rome. And they were fighting a losing battle against a change in customs. The culture was changing, and pants were coming in, and pants are more practical, brethren. They simply are more practical for active wear. And they became, just as we see the Japanese and the Chinese and the Indians today adopting it, as the Romans were exposed to pants from their adventures in Europe, that the pants wearing came in. Of course, pants won in the end. By a century later, the barbarians had claimed the battle for the sartorial soul of the court of Constantinople, the only Roman court left. By the 5th and 6th century, suddenly the so-called barbarian custom, sleeve top and trousers, had become the official uniform of the Roman court. If you were close to the emperor, that's what you would wear, says Olson. Scholars have not yet been able to explain how that happened, trousers going from being banned to legally required clothes for the Roman court. Now, I explained already how it happened. It happened because they were more practical, better active wear. If you're in a very cold climate outside or even inside without heat, it's much more practical. Okay, so we are making some changes in the dress standard. When it comes to dresses, we want people to understand that we are not doing inches anymore. We're doing a principle. The principle is modesty, utility, health, and what is comfortable and healthful and modest is the standard now. And that in some cases you could have a longer dress at of any length, longer than normal for us, and worn in a way that was calling attention to the individual, and it would be immodest. If dress calls attention to the person, then that's a problem. If it calls attention to your body, if it has some particular outstanding feature compared to other people, and people like to do this, by the way. They like to be on the edge of fashion. They like to call attention to themselves. And maybe you're just used to it and you don't even think about it, but you're doing it. And that contravenes the principle of modesty. We don't do that. But we don't do inches anymore. The proper distance from the bottom of the dress to the floor from Ellen G. White was not given to me in inches, but 3 companies of females passed before me with their dresses as follows with respect to length. The first were fashionable length, burdening the limbs, impeding the step, and sweeping the street. The dress, now, burdening the limbs and impeding the step. If your dress impedes your step, you cannot walk, you cannot do things, you are making a mistake. You're not at the Davidian level now, the new standard, brethren. It is a standard of action. It is not a formalistic standard, but it's based on principle. The dress of the second class, now remember that it was fashionable in Sister White's time for very long dresses. Sister White herself occasionally would wear the longer dresses. We'll read about it. The second class of which passed before me was in many respects as it should be, but it had gone to the extreme in the short dress as to disgust and prejudice good people and destroy in great measure their own influence. This was the style and influence of the American costume. It does not reach to the knee. I need not say that this style of dress was shown to me to be too short. A dress that is above the knee is too short. Okay, so why, by the way? It is immodest. It is calling attention to yourself, and in a deeper sense, it causes disgust and prejudice of good people, and it will destroy in a large measure their own influence. Now, this is the deeper principle here that we are actually following. Understand these things, brethren. Understand where we're coming from and where we're going here. If it causes prejudice, it will destroy in great measure our influence. And this is what is where we're really coming from now. We do have to update. We do have to have truth for each generation, present truth, but there's a reason for these things behind it. A third class passed before me with cheerful countenance and free elastic step. And I want to emphasize the elastic step. If you trudge around barely shuffling your feet, and you can't lift your feet, you don't have elastic feet, you can't move your limbs freely, you are not dressed or walking according to the Davidian standard. There is a lot of things to improve here, a lot of things. And as we get older, it is not less important to walk with an elastic step, it's more important to do it. And this, brethren, is our religion. I hope that you can run with the horsemen on this, because there is not going to change. This is the principle. A third class, it was found, when the subject of inches came up, it was found that the length of our dresses ranged from 8 to 10 inches from the floor. Some of these were a little longer than the sample shown to me, while others were a little shorter. That was the standard 150 years ago. Now, it's not the standard of ancient Israel, it's not the standard of Rome, and by the way, it's not the cultural standard of today. Now, today, our standard has, our world is very tolerant, and the standards of our culture has widened, and anything goes almost. And so while the second class of people with their dress above the knee is part of, is accepted culturally, very long dress is also accepted today to a degree, okay? But if you see someone with a very short dress on, or if you see someone with a very long dress on, it will attract your eye, man or woman. Now, it doesn't mean that you'll be gazing on them or you will even specially remark on it, but some people, it will excite disgust and prejudice, one way or another, either way, either class. And our principle is not to excite disgust, interest, attention, or prejudice. And this is what is going to change. And this is why we say there's no more inches. It is a matter of utility, being able to walk with an elastic step, being able to sit modestly, being able to function, and not call attention to yourself. This is a standard, brethren. Okay, I want to deal with Sister White's standard. This is how she dressed, and the people dressed back in her time. We don't dress like that. That's not our standard today. If you did dress like that, you would call attention to yourself and you would create prejudice. Now, she wasn't trying to create prejudice, and in fact, in her time, that was within the cultural norms. But these things change. Now, the cultural norm is not the same as the style and the fashion. There's a difference. The cultural norm is like a more general principle on your dress, while style is the individual cut, color, fabric, and so on, okay? And style will varies very rapidly from season to season, year to year, while the cultural norms change more slowly. They change every generation, every couple of generations. We've had a number of generations between her time and our time. Do you think it's time for present truth for our generation on this subject? Yes, it is, brethren. And we're not going to be wearing her clothing, and of course, or his, by the way, her son's, and no one is, by the way. We don't, and you understand this. It was updated in the 40s, the 30s and the 40s, 1930s and 40s. 95 years ago, the message came in 1930, and standards were updated, rightly so, and it's time that they be updated again. In entering the house of God, now I want to point out something else. As a little background information on this subject, we as Davidians believe we have the Elijah message, the message that restores all things. Restores it to what condition? This message restores all things to the Edenic condition, the pre-fall condition, right? That's what we believe. We're moving in that direction, back to that direction. Now, the way the people dressed after the fall, these things have changed generation by generation, or century by century, very ancient times, millennium by millennium. But they are changing, they change. For us, we, in all of our things, not just dress, but everything, is being pointed back to Eden, okay? And that's our principle. Now I want to, in just one tiny point, elucidate a principle of dress from Eden. And we don't take this principle very far right now, by the way, of restoring all things. So that is not in the case of dress. But in one tiny point, they did not use a head covering in Eden. The women did not use a head covering in Eden. When Eve prayed, there's no understanding of that. And in fact, there's a clear understanding that she didn't. Implication, I would say. Now here is Sister White with a hat on. You know why she's wearing a hat outside? Because it was the standard of the culture for a woman of her station and distinction when they were dressed in a certain way, to wear a hat. Men too, by the way, if you look at those old-time pictures. Today, things are different, but that's the culture that she was in. But this is what she preached in a sermon to both men and women. She preached this: in entering the house of worship, you should remember that it is in the house of God, that it is the house of God. Respect should be shown by the removal of the hat, remembering that you are entering into the presence of God and angels. You should teach the children reverence. Let earnest efforts be carried forward to this end, and remember that you are in the temple of the living God. Now, this was a cultural understanding in her time. That was understanding in her time, and if your historical horizons are not broad enough to encompass it, you need to understand these things. You need to know, okay? To be all closed up and narrow-minded and live in the present and not know anything about the past or the future is not Davidian. And you do need to know these things, brethren. Go and learn these things yourself. In her time, she was saying, and there's another statement on this in the Spirit of Prophecy, about how the grandmothers always wore bonnets everywhere except in church, okay, when they took it off. That was the standard then. There is much to say about this showing respect to God, but the point here that we want to deal with right now is that we show respect in different ways. There's not one way. And if you think that your way is the only way and it must be this way, you're mistaken. In Eden, Eve showed respect without the hat. In Roman times, they showed respect by covering the head for the woman. In Sister White's time, they showed respect by taking off the hat when they went into the church. It is a matter of our cultural understanding here. This is something that does change, and for us, it is changing back to the Edenic standard. And if you say, well, Paul says blah, 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 we will point you to the standard in Eden, brethren. That is where we're going. Now, you don't have to go there right this minute. You don't have to take off your hat in the sanctuary. But if you think that you can't take off your hat, and you shouldn't, and Brother Trevor is mistaken, and Bashan is mistaken on this subject, then you set yourself up to stand at the tomb of the dead prophet and be left behind. And I know this is a hard saying for you, and I know that many people are going to have a hard time on these things. And it's interesting that we should have a hard time on this little thing, and we're messing up so badly on the big things. Don't be confused here. The standards of what it means to be a Davidian are much higher. They're increasing, brethren. They are increasing. And this right here is part of that raising of the standards. If you can follow, good. If you are a sheep, if you are a person who can follow along, you will follow. Those who can't will separate themselves, will hit this barrier, and for a small thing, separate themselves. And sometimes that's for the best, because those people who make a big issue of the little things are the very people who are finding it the hardest to meet the real Davidian standards that are so important today. Critical. Okay, so yes, this is a clarified drawing of a photograph of Sister White preaching, It's one of the few photographs of her in church preaching. It's based on this picture right here, and it is not so clear here, but they clarified it in that picture. That's what they believed, okay? It's okay for you to, if in your heart you believe that you would be disrespectful to God if you were not wearing a hat in the sanctuary, then wear the hat, okay? Wear the head covering. But you must understand that when you get back to Eden, you will not be wearing a head covering when you are praying, when you are communing with Christ, face to face. God wants us all to have common sense, and he wants us to reason from common sense. Circumstances alter conditions. Circumstances change the relation of things. This is a hard saying for people who like certainty, simplicity, and this is what all I have to do. I just have to wear these things and do this, and that's all. And circumstances do change. The cultural norms do change. And when you're in ancient Rome, you're going to see men wearing dresses, okay, skirts. Yes, you are. And don't be troubled by it. And we don't mean for any men right now to go and wear dresses. That is beyond the cultural norm in this civilization. But things do change every few generations, every 100 years or so. Standards have to be updated, changed. Now there's some principles that we touched on already, and I want to touch on again. And these are the controlling principles. These principles are the deeper reasons why we do things, why we say things. These are the principles behind Sister White's standards and Brother Howard's standards and our standards today. It may be said that Sister White, and this is her comment, by the way. It may be said that Sister White generally wears her dresses in public longer than the dress she recommends others. Now remember, in her time, it was more fashionable to wear them longer rather than shorter, okay? To this I reply, when I visit a place to speak, to people where the subject is new and prejudice exists, I think it best to be careful and not close the ears of the people by wearing a dress which would be objectionable to them. And this is the principle, as I already said. This is a very important reason behind what we're doing. We're not doing this out of personal concern or reasons. We're very comfortable with the standards today, personally. And if you are very comfortable with them, I understand that. If you're very used to them and you don't want to change, we don't accept that, but we understand how people get locked into their way of thinking. And that's the only way, Brother Trevor. It can't be any other way, ever, anywhere, under any circumstance. But don't think like that, because that's not true. But after bringing the subject before them and fully explaining my position, I then appear before them in the reform dress, illustrative of my teachings. So it's okay to a degree to dress in a way that blends in with other people's, to a degree. Luckily, today, our cultural norms are so wide that we can dress in a modest way and not really stand out. But we don't have to abandon our way of dress. If we have a way of dress that is familiar to us and comfortable to us, and we are among brethren, we don't have to worry about that so much. Brethren, time is short and the work is great. We Davidians are far, far from the people we need to be. The fact that we put so much emphasis into meat and drink and dress is evidence of the problem. And we are not putting enough emphasis on what is in the heart, what our behavior. And we are all in this situation. And you need to understand that this is a very serious, life-threatening situation for us in the end. We are going to face the judgment, and not too long. And if we don't have our life together, if we're not living the Davidian life in truth, we're not going to receive the seal of God. The Christian is admonished to dress modestly, neatly, and becomingly. But while shunning the world's extremes and licentiousness, the Christian should be careful not to go to the other extreme, not to appear unkempt. Keep in the middle of the road. That is, arrange your hair in such a way as to avoid attracting attention of the public eye by reason of either extreme. And arrange your hair in such a way that you are not that you have not clamped a hat on your head early in the morning, and the hat does not come off your head until the end of the day, brethren. There is no point for that. That is not part of our message. That's why you arrange your hair. For some reason, the hat wearing has become a very deep personal thing here at Bashan, and people put the hat on and wear the hat all day, everywhere they go. And it is not the Mount Carmel way. I've mentioned to you before, the pictures of the sisters at Mount Carmel do not show that, and it is not, there's no reason for that. And you get into these habits and you get stuck in it, and you think, oh, that's the only way. I'm not changing either. Nobody's going to change me. Well, I hope that you will change. For your sake, I hope you will change. I hope you will listen to these things and unlearn the things that you need to unlearn and learn the things that you do need to learn. Avoid attracting attention of the public eye by reason of either extreme. This is what modesty is about. This is what we're not even going to the level of licentious display and so on. Modesty for us is about not attracting the attention of the public eye. And when you do, in your dress, you reduce your usefulness. You harm your ability to work for other people. Sister White understood that, and she dressed more fashionably when she needed to. And the same, to a degree, could be so today. Now, as I said, we are blessed in the sense that there's a wider cultural norm today, and so you don't have to be on the cutting edge of style and fashion at all to be unobtrusive. Just let your dress be something that is not remarked on, either for good or for ill. Let them judge you on the content of your character and the things that you say, not on the things that you are wearing. None to be conscience for another, but set a worthy example. Do not encourage a class who center their religion in dress. Let each one study the plain teachings of the Scriptures as to simplicity and plainness of dress, and by faithful obedience to those teachings, strive to set a worthy example to the world and to those new in the faith. God does not want any one person to be conscience for another. Talk of the love and humility of Jesus, but do not encourage the brethren and sisters to to engage in picking flaws in the dress or appearance of one another. Some take delight in this work. They climb upon the judgment seat. This is one of the most effectual means of becoming narrow-minded and of dwarfing spiritual growth. Sister White spoke by inspiration here, brethren, as with everything. It does make people narrow-minded. People do become all shriveled up and concerned with inches and formalities and exterior things. And they lose sight of the important things, of talking about Jesus, of living like Jesus. They do. It's a real thing. She's not making this up, and I am not making it up either. God would have them step down from the judgment seat, for he has never placed them there. If you don't like the standards now, what Sister White is saying and what Bashan is saying is, do not judge, do not condemn, hold your peace. Let the Holy Spirit work on your heart. Take some time about this. This is what I suggest for those people who cannot immediately move forward to the present truth. Do not judge, do not condemn. Wait a little bit. Wait a long time, by the way, before you judge and condemn others. The dress question is not to be our present truth. Brethren, this is present truth now, though, by the way. Now, Sister White, the message says many things, and it is necessary for us to do part of the binding and loosening process of the truth to point to the present truth today. And if this is the teaching of Bashan, this is the teaching of the message. And if you can hear what I'm saying, hear and listen to what I'm saying. Bashan is pointing out what is present truth today. The dress question is not to be our present truth. To create an issue on this point now would please the enemy. He would be delighted to have minds diverted to any subject by which he might create division of sentiment and lead our people into controversy. And while you can, don't, by the way, don't send statements to the other side, and understand why it's useless. Present truth is what is we need today, and Bashan has the authority to teach present truth. And this is the present truth we are teaching. If you find 25 statements on the other side, it doesn't matter. Those statements are not present truth. We are not teaching those. We are not emphasizing that, okay? So if you pull up things from the message or the spirit of prophecy contrary, it doesn't matter. I hope you understand what I'm saying. The enemy will be delighted to have you dig in your heels and make this a major controversy for yourself. You will be digging a pit for yourself and throwing yourself into it, though. Don't do it, we hope. Women should clothe their limbs with regard to health and comfort. Their feet and limbs need to be as clad as warmly as men's. This is the principle, brethren. I have always been offended when I see women's formal dress today. And by the way, in our culture today, it is still correct for women to wear dresses under certain formal conditions, okay? In formal circumstances, women wear so-called evening dress and so on, but very often it's sleeveless, low cut, and you will see the men wearing suits. The men are comfortable, the women are exposed, and they're not as warm. They're not as comfortable. It cannot be. We do not discriminate. We do not treat one sex with a more uncomfortable standard, a more unhealthful standard than we do the other. And the fashion in this case may require you to wear high heels, and you might think, if you want to be in fashion, high heels and a skimpy little shoe that doesn't really protect you and allow you to walk, and you would be making a mistake, by the way. The standard here, this is the principle. Your foot, your shoe must be comfortable and healthful. We don't do inches on the heels, okay? Wear any heel that you want. But they need to be modest. You need to be able to walk modestly and healthfully and really walk. And the shoe should be protective. It should not just be a flimsy nothing. And if you are wearing something like that, fine. Nobody should take out a tape measure back and forth. But brethren, if you're not sure about it, I'd be delighted to take you for a walk on the trails in your high heels and see how well you can walk in them, okay? If you're thankful at the end of the day to take off your shoes and your legs are tired and sore, you are not wearing healthful dress, and it cannot be. The feet and limbs need to be clad as warmly and safely and securely as with men. And this is an overriding principle of dress. It is well to observe that there's no record and this is from Brother Houdeff, there's no record that anyone had occasion from the manner in which Jesus dressed to speak either for him or against him. Understand this. This is the standard. This is our standard today. This shows that he was not an extremist. Besides, his garments must have been well worth having, else his enemies would not have cared to cast lots for them. This very same principle should govern our own manner of dressing. And this is the deeper principle that we observe. Now, Bashan has the right and the responsibility and the duty to teach present truth, but we don't make up the truth, okay? The truth is already in the message. It's very important to understand this. But we do call attention to present truth for our time. The whole idea of Bashan being the pastor today, the headquarters, is part of that responsibility. The association in 1961 started to teach that this was present truth. And there are those who do not accept that, who want to say, no, we're still in the Carmel period, and so on. So present truth from the message can be taught by the association, and it is really our duty to teach these things. People may not like these things, but we have to teach appropriately for our time. This very same principle should govern our own manner of dressing. We should so dress as to be remembered not for wearing a trinket of some kind, trimming color, or the like, but remembered for being well dressed with attention called to no one thing in particular. Also, our dress ought to be such that the very poorest will not feel out of place in our presence, and the richest will not feel ashamed of our company. The sum of the whole matter in a nutshell is this, that we adorn ourselves with nothing for pride or display, but for respect and modesty. This is the standard. There will be more to say about these things in particular, but brethren, this is the standard. Do not go into extreme. Dress yourself and your children in such a way as to prevent special attention and immodesty, yet clean and neat, and though inexpensive, the material may be of durable quality. The Christian is admonished to dress modestly, neatly, and becomingly, but while shunning the world's extremes in licentiousness, the Christian should be careful not to go to the other extreme, not to appear unkempt. Keep in the middle of the road, that is, arrange your hair in such a way as to avoid attracting the attention of the public eye. Christians should not take pains to make themselves a gazing stock by dressing differently from the world. But if, when following out their convictions of duty in respect to dressing modestly and healthfully, they find themselves out of fashion, they should not change their dress in order to be like the world, but they should manifest a noble independence and moral courage to be right if the world differ from them. Now, this is speaking about fashion, not the cultural norms. The fashions change. If you think you have to follow the fashion, you're mistaken. And the reason that we say that we don't have to follow fashion and we still blend in, is that not everybody will follow the same fashion. Today, thankfully, there's a lot of leeway here. Everybody doesn't have to be like lemmings and jump off the cliff of fashion at the same time. And you shouldn't. Do not follow the fashions of the world. If the world introduces a modest, convenient, and healthful mode of dress, which is in accordance with the Bible, it will not change our relation to God or to the world to adopt such a style of dress. Christians should follow Christ and make their dress conform to God's word. They should shun extremes. Now remember, it's the principle behind these things that count, not the exact type of garment, not the exact inches and so on, but it's the principle, brethren. And we do, modest in this sense is not calling attention to ourselves, not calling attention to ourselves in one direction or another. And you think, well, I will err on the side of being safe, and I will just cover myself in a bag, as it were, and be safe. And you can't do that. That's an error, a significant error, just as significant as erring on the other side of dressing in a way that is immodest and calls attention to yourself. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body, what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment? And why take ye thought for raiment? And this is quoted in Timely Greetings, Brother Houteff, Volume 2, number 38, page 24. Jesus has noticed the care and devotion given to dress, and has cautioned, yea, commanded us not to bestow too much thought upon it. It is important that we give careful heed to his word. And this, brethren, is the deeper, direct from Christ principle that we must keep in mind on these things. If you get all wrapped up in this, you are on your own. You are setting up yourself to go contrary to not only our standards today now, but the Word of God. And this is our closing thought, brethren. The dress reform was among the minor things that we were to make up, the great reform in health, and never should have been urged as a testing truth necessary to salvation. It was the design of God that at the right time, on proper occasions, the proper persons should set forth its benefits as a blessing and recommend uniformity and a union of action. And this is the principle of the living spirit of prophecy in action, bringing present truth for today. And brethren, this is what we are doing. This is our standard for today. We are going to properly emphasize dress reform, and those who deliberately and continually refuse to move ahead, they will be left behind, and we're sorry about that. And those who want to run ahead on their own and do whatever, and they say, well, Brother Trevor said we could do whatever. We could dress now. It's a minor thing that should never be urged as a testing truth necessary to salvation. They also are making a mistake. Don't. Walk in the middle of the road. Walk in the light of present truth today, and everything will be fine. There's reasons for everything. God does not explain every reason to us. If you think that we know everything there is to know, that's a very, very wrong thought. And I am not explaining everything there is to say on this subject, but I gave you the key points. We have a great work to do, and we have a very short time to do it, and we are failing badly. On the greater things in our own life, we're failing, and on the most important things of evangelizing the church and the world, we are failing. We have not brought reformation and revival to ourselves, and we have not done our work in the church, and we are failing. Face that, brethren, and put your mind on the important things. Do the things the basic things. Do these things in the right way and in the right spirit. But understand that however much emphasis you give to these things, you should give 10 times more emphasis to the fruits of the Spirit in your life. These are the things that are truly important for us all. Thank you, brethren. God bless you.